Welcome to our virtual opening. My name is Rachel Adams. I'm the Chief Curator and Director of Programs at the Bemis Center, and we're super excited for you to join us tonight. We have a really fun program ahead. We're going to introduce our 3 new exhibitions and then have a wonderful performance by David Hurlin in Joey Fauerso's exhibition. I'm right now standing in Paul Mapaghi Sequoia's exhibition, Drop Scene, and this is part of our 3 exhibitions that are sort of curated under the rubric of intimate actions. These exhibitions are open until April 24th, so you have plenty of time to come see them, even though you can't be here with us tonight in person. And when these exhibitions sort of started coming together a little over a year ago, I hadn't originally thought that they would kind of connect the way that they have, and you know what's always really exciting is that kind of happens, especially during the install, once everything's kind of up, you sort of see a lot of connections being made. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that, and we'll go into Joey's exhibition as well as Maria Antelman's exhibition, and then we will take a short break, and then we'll be back with a live performance from Joey's exhibition. Paul Mapaghi Sequoia is an artist who's based in Los Angeles. Some of you might know his work. He has exhibited pretty widely in the Whitney Biennial most recently, as well as having a large solo exhibition at the Contemporary Art Museum in St. Louis about 2 years, maybe a little less than 2 years ago. And he is a photographer. And Paul's work really speaks to me in a way that, as a photographer myself, when I was in undergrad, I really wished I could make photography or make photographs like this. Paul photographs himself as well as friends and acquaintances that he's obviously made over the years. He works primarily in his studio, so all the work in this show is pretty recent, between 2017 and 2020, and some of them they're all from sort of different series, but they all represent, show him as the photographer and show his camera and various people that he's had relationships with, friendships, and so on. And as you can kind of see a little bit behind me, there's sort of 2 different images in this corner. One is actually an image of his studio that he's shooting, and once you're in here, you can kind of see, you can find him in there. And then this image right here on the left is an image of himself with another model. And what I love about these 2 together is that there's actually a work print of this photograph and this photograph. So you sort of see all of these amazing layers. These 3 exhibitions, again, are kind of speaking to intimacy, but also speaking to action. There's a lot having to do with the body and the fragmentation of the body, which you can obviously see really well in a lot of Paul's work because he shoots directly into a mirror, and there's layers upon layers there. He works with these, tools of the studio, these black drop cloths. You see the cameras, sometimes the actual camera he's taking a photo with, sometimes different cameras that are in the shot as sort of props or tools. Sometimes the other people in the photograph are also taking a picture, so there's a lot of action that's happening there as well, and a lot to do with the body and the body together with other bodies, and really sort of seeing the relationships that that he's built over the years. I really had an interesting conversation with him yesterday where he was sort of talking a lot about this being collaborative. A lot of these people that he's working with are other artists, and so other works kind of come out of these in their own practice as well, and sort of again adding to this really interesting layer of intimacy and exchange and collaboration, as well as really these beautiful formal photographs that happen. So there's lots going on, as I've said, and I think what really is exciting about Paul's work and this show in particular. And we're really excited about the flow of the show and the way that you walk into it, and the scale shifts that happen. So these 2 photographs that are behind me are fairly large, but we do have smaller, intimate works, and then I think we have maybe 2 other larger works than these behind me. So there's a lot, that as a viewer, you can really enter into or try to enter into, which is sort of the interesting point, because the way that he is photographing these, you don't really become a player in the work in a way that maybe other photographs you sort of might get a perspective of the photographer. So yeah, I think I'm going to end there. I'm really excited to share these works with you again, and we're going to move to the next gallery, but just as a reminder, these shows are open starting tomorrow, so you can schedule your visit online at bemiscenter.org. And yeah, we're really excited to hear from you and hear your thoughts and continue these conversations. Paul and I will actually be having a lunchtime conversation, and all of that information will be available on our website of when, and the Zoom link and all of that stuff. So each artist and I are going to do those talks in January. So just be on the lookout for those, and we're gonna go to the next show. So see you in a minute. Hi again, everyone. This is Rachel Adams, the Chief Curator and Director of Programs at the Bemis Center. And now I have moved into Gallery 3, which is the gallery where Maria Entelman has her exhibition called Soft Interface. And Maria is an artist based in New York, but she also spends a lot of time in Greece. She is from Greece originally. And Maria's work is, again, she is a photographer and works in video, and she has been photographing her family and herself for a really long time and sort of incorporating that into her work. She's really interested in technology in general and sort of how the body and technology kind of work together and sometimes work apart. And we are super excited to present this solo exhibition of hers with all of new work that she's made basically in the last year. Maria actually came to Bemis for a site visit right at the beginning of March, right before the pandemic hit, and she was able to spend some time here and really conceive of this project and conceive of some new work for it. And so behind me, you'll see we have still photographs in this really amazing frame, as well as when you look at it, you can kind of see that this is a video on this sort of infinite loop that's kind of shifting really, really subtly. And these two pieces, as well as many others in the show, they all sort of, resemble this and are looking at, again, the body and fracturing the body, fragmenting it, and really highlighting it at the same time, really being able to kind of get up close to certain parts of the body and look at those parts and really think about, how those parts are really being affected in our everyday life. Several of the other works in the show have sort of layers that Maria has incorporated, it's hard to sort of explain, but kind of like rock. And, thinking about rocks and sort of like our ancient technology. And so you'll sort of see that kind of infiltrated into the work in this way that kind of the body is sort of morphing and moving and changing based on how she sort of put together the photograph or the video. And what I'm just super excited about to share, this work is that I think this is something, same in sort of Paul's work and same with Joey's work, is, this work is really new in terms of obviously just being made, but also in like the presentation and the process and the way that these artists are working. They just, for me, someone who does spend a lot of time looking at art and meeting with artists, I feel really excited to be able to bring work like this to Omaha. That is something very different, something that maybe the artist hasn't really done before, and maybe our audience and our community hasn't been exposed to before, and really kind of create those conversations about intimacy in this time of COVID, in this weird year that we've been in, and thinking about how connected and disconnected we are, how we are sort of tied to technology in a way that we have been for the entirety of us being alive on this planet. And Maria, as someone who is interested in these questions and these thoughts, also really thinking about classical sculpture and art history and sort of how that plays into the work, thinking especially about her own background as someone who's Greek and knowing about the history of art and culture within sort of ancient Greek and Greece, and how that has sort of infiltrated again throughout the world, and how influential those cultures have been, continue to be on us today. So I hope that you'll think about making an appointment, scheduling your visit to come see these shows. Again, they're open until April 24th, so you do have lots of time. Maria and I will do a conversation, again, a lunchtime conversation in January, so make sure that you check our website for those RSVP details, and we'll talk more about the work in the show and how she sort of got into this, and maybe even show some previous work as well. So please stay tuned for that, and we're going to go into Joey's exhibition now. Hi again, everyone. Thanks again for joining us. If you're just joining us, my name is Rachel Adams. I'm the Chief Curator and Director of Programs at the Bemis Center. And now I'm Inside the Spider's Body is the name of the show. And it's a solo exhibition by Joey Fauerso, who is based in San Antonio, Texas. And actually, I met Joey a long time ago. She's sitting right over there, by the way. You'll meet her soon. But yeah, I curated one of her amazing videos into the Texas Biennial screening that I did in Austin, Texas, like 10 years ago. And really loved the work, always, kept in touch and sort of thinking about her work and seeing it. And when it made sense to invite her to do the show, we were super excited that she said yes. And yeah, she's actually been the only artist on site this week. She's been installing like crazy, and we're really thrilled to share the work with you. And then the performance will happen soon. So Joey's work is dealing with a lot of sort of differences between like body and landscape, and sort of all the things that I've kind of also been talking about with Paul and Maria's work in terms of intimacy and fragmentation, and sort of thinking about space and time and all of the like amazing aspects that artists are sort of dealing with within these three exhibitions. Joey primarily works in black and white, which is something that she started doing several years ago as a response to a health crisis that she had. And I think that when you sort of walk into this space, you're immediately sort of transported in a way into, so many different like layers again. Right here on the floor there's several of these cube pieces that have paintings in the bottom, sort of sculptural paintings. And Joey has this really sort of sculptural, painterly aspect. Like all of the work has texture and material, and it's not like perfectly straight, and it's not, something that I think, you're gonna see it like perfectly framed in that way. So, there's like a little bit of messiness in a like wonderful way, the way that she sort of paints and the way that she sort of thinks about the work. But then you have these like beautiful like sort of vignettes that kind of happen throughout the show. Joey has paintings, she has sculptures, she has videos. We're gonna have a performance in a few minutes. And so this really multidisciplinary way of working, a little bit different than obviously Paul, who it really is a photographer and sort of sticks to that, and Maria, who's working mostly in photography and video. But of course, again, thinking about space with the way that she's creating those frames. So there's a lot of, again, intersections that are happening, and Joey and I will be having a lunchtime conversation about her work, and we'll show images of this show and probably images of some of the previous work that she's done in other places. And just be on the lookout for that on, again, bemiscenter.org is our website. And you can, check out what's coming up with these exhibitions. Reminder that they are on view until April 24th, so you have plenty of time to schedule a visit and come in. Everything is socially distanced. We're requiring masks, so just so everyone feels comfortable. We're only doing 10 appointments per hour, so there's sort of, you get kind of the galleries to yourself in a way. Bring a couple of people with you and spend some time in here, and you'll really be blown away, honestly. So please schedule a visit with us, and we look forward to having you in the galleries. And now we're going to take a short little intermission, and we're going to have a performance by David Hurlin, who is someone Joey has known for a long time. He's based in Fairfield, Iowa. And then Joey and I and David are going to do a Q&A, short Q&A. So if you have questions, you can chat those in, and we'll try and get those answered. So looking forward to hearing from you all. and for you to see the performance. And then I just want to thank, obviously, everybody that's helped us with these exhibitions. The staff at Bemis has been so wonderful, and as always, just doing like the most amazing work. And then, of course, our sponsors for the show, and I will talk more about that later. So thank you.
Good. Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. It is now the evening, and we are here in the gallery ready for the performance. We're thrilled to open these exhibitions and have you all schedule a time to come visit us over the next few months. As I mentioned in my remarks in the galleries earlier, each artist and I will be doing a lunchtime conversation over Zoom. So please tune into those. If you're interested in learning more, you can obviously schedule your visit to come see before those start. The first one will be with Joey Fauerso on January 6th. Paul and I will speak on January 13th, and Maria and I will speak on January 27th. So there's plenty of time to come see the shows before then and get your questions ready. More information about those will come to you via email and social media, so just be on the lookout. Right after the performance, Joey, David, and I will do a short Q&A. So if you have any questions, please type them into the chat and we'll get them read out and answered. Really excited to talk to Joey and David about their work together. And then before we start, I just want to thank our supporters, the Andy Warhol Foundation for the Visual Arts, Art Bridges, Douglas County, Nebraska, the Nebraska Arts Council, the Nebraska Cultural Endowment, and Omaha Steaks. With their support and the support of you, we can keep all of our programs free and open to the public. We know it's not the same to not be here in person, but we're continuing to adapt during this time, so we really appreciate your support. Finally, I want to thank the artists for their immensely wonderful work. All three exhibitions are honestly dreamy. I'm not joking. Please come. There's so much to see and spend time with and dig into. So many connections made across all three of these exhibitions. And again, you have until April 24th to do that, but I would say come multiple times. But thank you, Paul, thank you, Maria, and thank you, Joey. And without further ado, we'll have a performance. Okay, hi everyone. Just thank you so much, David and Joey. That was amazing, as we were all just glowing over here. Wow, like my heart is really racing. I'm sure yours is racing even more. I want to introduce Joey Fauerso, the artist of the show. She's the one that made all of this amazing pieces that David just played.
With some help on the ceramics.
With some help on the ceramics. And David Hurlin, our performer for the evening. Thank you again. So let's open this Q&A. We have we're gonna just open it up. If anyone has any questions, please chat them in. I have the chat open on my phone, so if you have questions, please do so. But I'm gonna start off and just maybe Joey, you can talk a little bit about about where this collaboration started. Like when did you start working with David, and what were you thinking when that happened, and
So 2 summers ago I was invited. David and I grew up together, but I'm a few years older, so we didn't really know each other growing up. But 2 summers ago I was invited by the art department at the Maharishi International University in Fairfield, where David still lives.
In Iowa.
And where I grew up, to come and do a ceramics residency. And I had this idea that I wanted to make forms and make kind of props that then would be used for like a percussive performance where they would be kind of like drummed into dust. That was my initial kind of idea. And luckily for me, my dad and my great friend Guion Shrewsbury, who teaches at MIU, both said, "You've got to talk to David." And David already was doing all these like incredible site-specific drumming pieces, and so I spent about a month with some helpers making all of these ceramic pieces, and then in one day, and I truly say it was like one of the best art making days of my life, when one day we, with the help of Cody, we filmed for like about 8 hours.
Wow.
Just I would set up something, and then David would do something incredible like what we saw tonight, and then and so that was like the beginning of the collaboration.
And so you did a performance at Blue Star in San Antonio also. What was that, like 8 months?
About a year ago.
Yeah. And then now here. So this is the sort of third time you're working together. How does it, has it changed at all? Like how has it been kind of getting to understand like these materials a little bit more?
Well, I come from a background of like concert drumming. So I'm used to being very precise, playing what's necessary for the song. And I think about a few years ago, I sort of made the transition into more mischievous playing. I'm like, well, what if I didn't play in time? So I started experimenting with like more lyrical or humorous or, just completely off the rails drumming. So there's a considerable amount of evolution that happens like pretty much every day for me in the studio. But so with Joey, like the difference between last year and this year, there's a huge amount that I've undergone as just a personal like performer and artist. Like I'm in the MIU art program right now. I'm building these huge sound sculptures. So this is pretty much my full day every day right now. So I feel a lot more comfortable with specific techniques like, okay, I'm gonna spin this thing until it stops, and then I know when it's gonna stop, and then I can either ignore the end or use the end of that spin. So there's just like much more facility with those extended techniques that seems to be happening.
Cool. And Joey, I think maybe what I wanna ask about a little bit is, there might be some people at home being like, oh my God, you made all of these things, and obviously now they are somewhat destroyed. Can you talk about that a little bit in your practice? I mean, obviously we have this piece behind us too, and when people come to see the show, they can kind of see it a little bit closer, but sort of, I cannot remember what you said yesterday, but it was something about preciousness and how it's, you might have to repeat it, but just sort of thinking about treading that line between like what is precious and what is sort of, not, honestly, at that point, or like the experience of it is more important than the actual like object or something like that, right?
Yeah, that this idea that something can be important but not necessarily precious, and that I was thinking about it like, especially in terms of our background, that it's this kind of like evolutionary practice to be able to let something go, you know? And I think we've all, you know, throughout our lives are surprised by situations that sort of push us forward in ways that can be painful or can be beautiful. And for me, like, at a certain point, I started to think about sort of shifting my practice and like incorporating my family and all of the ups and downs and surprises that were coming at me, like just letting that be more part of the work. And one day, my younger son, Paul, who maybe is watching, I hope he is, but he said to my older son, he said, "You destroy every special thing I make." And he was feeling like bad about it. And I wrote that down and I thought, God, that's so amazing, because, and it made me just think the way that children who are in a more flexible part of their cognitive development have this cyclical process, which is mirrored, you could think of on a universal scale, which is they make something and it's important in the moment, and it's, you know, it's incredibly important in the moment, and then it's destroyed, then they let it go, and it's a little painful, and then it starts again, you know. And so I made a piece over 2 years where the boys and myself and another important collaborator in my life, Laura, where we would build things and destroy them over 2 years. So that was something that was like a precursor to this process. And I think, like, as artists, like, we have those breakthroughs, which kind of shifts your path dramatically, and that definitely happened. So now, you know, I think I've always thought about the work in terms of the relationship between painting and performance, but this interest in the generative possibilities of destructive acts and how, like, truly beautiful things can happen through that process, I think is like very central to what I'm interested in right now. That's why I feel so lucky to work with David, because it's so amazing.
Well, I think it's interesting what you said about letting things go, because as someone who works with sound, like, you can't hold on to it even for a moment. Like, it's gone instantly.
Yeah.
And to me, like, it's kind of the opposite process of learning how to, like, reduce that sense of immediate loss and sort of like sustain something for longer, like the dragging sounds and the things that don't have that instant departure. But it is kind of like fascinating to be just working with destruction as a form of creativity, because I think that they are, like in your statement, it was talking about like how they're sort of like parallel.
Yeah, I love like we were talking about this just a moment ago, just like the physicality of your performance also relates to that idea of like what's the constant, because your body becomes this like tether between these objects, which, you know, transform, their physical state radically transforms, and this, you know, the resulting sounds, but the constant, in a certain sense, like the through line is how you exist within that space and what you're doing, which is really beautiful.
We actually have a question from the audience. It's for David. How are you interacting with audio expression versus visual expression and their relationship?
I think, to be honest, it's definitely primarily audio. Like, if I go to a hardware store, I'm banging on everything. I'm like, the way that, I guess light and sound are pretty much the same, though. So, like, they're both waves, you know? Like, in a way, light is like a more refined version of sound. And light, you know, so vision, hearing, like, all the senses are kind of unified at the source. However, I think my path into that unification is definitely through audio. And the visuals are sort of a consequence of my exploration. And I like that, so I don't have to be worried about like an aesthetic. I don't have to be worried about how it looks or if it looks good, or that is all kind of accidental, which is something that I'm also intrigued by, like accidents.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think that sort of is definitely something that Joey was saying about, you know, her sons, and like you just constantly are, you know, creating stuff and it's being torn down in some way, and then something better might come or something worse, and you just don't know, and you just have to sort of go with it. We have another question from Dustin. Will you ask, he's texting me, where the percussive influence came from a young age until now as a musician, like what your influences are, I guess?
Well, it started just with a deep love of music. I remember specifically falling in love with this Talking Heads album when I was probably 5 years old. and just like getting so excited, asking my dad to get the record down from the top shelf because I couldn't reach it. So it started with a deep love of music, and then I sort of took some piano lessons, and it was just too kind of in the box. So like, and I started drumming late, around 15. But that was like much more my style. I was a tennis player, so like the drums came like very quickly to me because the coordination was not a problem. I was just instantly knew how to do it. And then because I had done so much listening, the sort of like cliches and architecture of music came really quickly too. And then my brother is like just one of these like Art Tatum savant types who just came out of the womb knowing how to play. And so when he was 13 and I was like just learning how to play drums, like we started a band with our teacher, and like our parents would have to get us into the bars and stuff. So it definitely started like songs, funk music, pretty much all black music, you know. And it's funny that I referenced Talking Heads because that's, you know, definitely connected to that. And then the funk thing sort of fused into improvisation and jazz, but like more inside out jazz. And then from there, because we went to the Maharishi International like university, there was this really exceptional tabla player from India who was on faculty. And so as a drummer, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like a chance to study with like a master. And then I went to go live with him after I graduated. And then from there, I sort of became interested in free jazz and like John Cage and all that stuff. And then it just has been a downward spiral into like pure madness. But, you know, so exciting.
That is exciting. Okay, I'm going to see if there are any more questions, hopefully, maybe. Here we go. Question for Joey. What was your part in the creative process for the performance? Is making the ceramic options your primary role? Has working with David influenced your ceramics and other work outside of this performance?
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, I had a helper help me make a lot of the ceramic pieces named Haley McGough. So I think the collaboration, started with this like idea of how these forms could be transformed and how they could become more sonically complex as they broke. In terms of this collaboration, I worked, with assistants and with my paintings and with the elements to kind of create what I wanted to be like a really beautiful installation that would then be the starting point. So I think one of the ways that I have evolved through the collaboration with David is thinking more specifically about what the sonic possibilities are of individual forms and how to arrange them in such a way that it could create interesting results. So I guess that's what I would say.
Yeah, I think so. We have a couple more questions. From Facebook, I feel the remnants of this performance are more about waste than loss. Do you think about waste as a result of the performance work, especially because the pot-like forms feel like artifacts, which are sometimes just treasured waste? I don't know. I think that might be for both of you, but.
Well, I mean, waste is a hard concept to wrap your head around because technically there is no such thing as loss or waste. Like, water can't be deleted from the universe, So in a way, I view it more as transformation in the same way like a seashell turns into sand. Like, obviously there are like minor ecological concerns like, oh, well, this is like a waste of a good pot that someone could use, but I don't think that those implications are dire enough. I'm not like employing like 80 Humvees to like break the pots or, like there's a very low impact ecologically. So I think more philosophically, it's not really waste, it's more transformation and like the objects taking on new identities that can then potentially be repurposed, or like some of the paintings like Joey was talking about, putting them in the ocean and then they survived and then now they're back. So it's more like embracing change rather than holding on to a specific identity for these forms.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I've become more interested in is this idea of like the resiliency of the materials and how they're sort of like they're on a journey or an adventure. You know, a lot of the things that I make, like David said, like if you come to visit the show, you'll see in Laurie's performance that the paintings are torn and become shelters, become clothing. They you know, they really are activated in like pretty physical ways, but then they re-enter the gallery. You know, so it's almost like I sort of think that they like get to go on a great adventure before they have to be still for the rest of their lives. So yeah, and I agree with David. I love the idea of you know, you think about different histories of art in the 20th century, like Art Povera and things, where there was a real interest in a change of physical states, a change of emotional states, and what are the intersections between those two. And I think that this hopefully kind of like taps into that vein.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, yes, when people do come see the show, they'll sort of see that, you know, there's aspects to it that kind of have like, you know, multiple lives in a way, you know, and I think throughout your work, you know, you sort of replicate some certain imagery, you know, like the universal woman that we were talking about earlier and things like that. And so, and, you know, everything is in black and white. And so it has this sort of, yeah, like aspect of, I love the idea of the great adventure anyway. Like I feel like this painting went on a great adventure while, you know, on Monday. So I think we have one more question. They're curious about the exhibition title and how it relates to the paintings and sculptures in the exhibition. So Joey, you want to?
Yeah, so the title of the exhibition, Inside the Spider's Body, comes from an Adrienne Rich poem called Incipience, which is a really beautiful poem that, I love her poetry, but it sort of speaks to the beginnings of change and sort of like internalized change, which very much resonated with me and probably lots of people in this year of seismic external change, but also internal change. You know, most of us have been sort of cloistered in situations that are pretty solitary. And so I think a lot of the pieces kind of speak to that, speak to transformation, speak to uncertainty, and speak to change both at the beginning of that cycle and at the end.
Okay, well, thank you all again for joining us. We are super excited to share these with you again. And also, if you enjoyed our program and our exhibitions, just remember that all of our programming is free and open to the public thanks to supporters just like you. If you're considering supporting us, you can go to bemis.org/donate. That would be amazing. And yeah, we want to just thank you, Joey, and thank you, David, and thanks to our team here on making this a great program live streamed.
And I would just say thank you to Bemis. This is an incredible place, and the team of people working here and helping to realize these shows are really special. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, see you on the next time. Bye.